Are you an overwhelmed SaaS founder ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those you don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where data accuracy matters because the numbers don't lie is only true when someone actually checks the numbers. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I hope B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. How confident are you in the answers your business data is giving you right now? Not pretty sure, but confident enough to bet real decisions, real money, and real momentum on them? Because when insight takes weeks to surface or worse, changes every time you ask the question, speed and trust quietly disappear. It's kind of like Elvis left the building, right? In this episode, we'll dive into a different way of thinking about AI for decision making, one built for moments when accuracy actually matters. You'll hear why faster answers aren't just a productivity win, but a strategic advantage, and how shortening the gap between question and clarity can completely change how business operates. We'll explore what happens when leaders can ask plain language questions and get the same correct answer every single time. No guesswork, no hand waving, no waiting on next quarter's report. The conversation also challenges the obsession with efficiency, making a compelling case for effectiveness instead, building systems that hold up under pressure, catch problems early, and enable action before losses pile up. If you've ever felt that your data could be more powerful than it is, or that AI sounds promising but maybe a little risky for real decisions, this episode offers a grounded, practical look at how smarter intelligence can finally earn your trust. Our expert guest last Thursday was Alistair Gordon, a widely respected authority on subject matter experts and founder of Expertunity. He joined us to challenge how organizations treat technical talent. Alistair made the case that technical specialists, not people leaders, are keeping organizations running and inventing the future. He introduced the concept of expertship, which I think is pretty awesome. I mean, it's got ship in it, so it's got to be cool, right? Explaining why forcing experts into management roles often backfires and how SMEs can develop enterprise skills to translate deep expertise into real influence and impact. Fascinating episode. Absolutely great. And then our founder last week was Ryan Debenham, CEO of Grin. He shared a candid look at becoming an accidental entrepreneur. His words, I love that. From his early days as a software engineer to leading AI and data at Qualtrics through its $8 billion SAP acquisition, and then scaling Route to $100 million in revenue. Ryan unpacked the mindset shift from building products to building companies and why embracing discomfort is essential for growth. If you missed either episode, go back and check those out. Great stuff there. My guest today is KG Charles Harris, a multi-time startup founder, former investment banker, and longtime builder of AI and data analytics well before they became buzzwords. KG has founded companies across industries as varied as genomics, artificial intelligence, and aquaculture. How about that? He is currently the founder and CEO of Quarrio. KG's work has consistently focused on one mission: giving small and mid-sized businesses access to the same intelligence and automation once reserved for Fortune 100 companies, bringing that power downstream, democratizing it. Pretty cool stuff. Long before self-serve analytics was a common language, KG was pushing for tools that let everyday business owners ask real questions and get real answers without waiting weeks or months. Welcome someone who's been quietly building the future of business intelligence for decades. KG Charles Harris. Hey, KG, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Thanks, Jeff. It's a pleasure to be here.
You founded 6 companies across wildly different industries. What's the through line that connects them all? And what is it that keeps pulling you back into building?
I founded/co-founded. Usually what happens is that I end up in some interesting discussion with some intelligent person, and I have this small missing piece of how to make it into a business. and we get along, and that's how we start collaborating, and that's how we create a company. It's usually around some kind of problem that we have both identified, or that when they speak to me or I speak to them becomes clearer. And then that becomes, we coalesce around it. So for example, the genomics company got started because I went to dinner, a birthday dinner at a friend's house in Norway. And her uncle happened to be a professor of genetics at the veterinary university. And we started talking, and he was so surprised that I knew anything about genetics. And so we ended up sitting and huddling until like 4:30 in the morning, just shooting ideas. And it ended with me saying, "Why don't you start a company?" And I said, "Oh, no, 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 no. I'm a professor. I don't do that." And then he came across here for a 1 year sabbatical. And upon returning to Norway, he called me up and he said, "I want to start a company." Really? Why? All my friends in the US are getting rich starting companies. I want to do that too. So, so that's how that
Yeah.
company got
Worst
going.
reason in the world to start a company.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how we got started there. And so it's usually just meetings that we have, like this company I'm working with now, Quarrio, got started because after I sold my last company, which was a business intelligence and data integration company, I was still struggling with the fact that, well, after I had rested a little bit, I was still struggling with the fact that I, as the CEO of a data integration and business intelligence company, cannot get the information I need when and how I need it. We created the software architecture from the ground up. I have the smartest people in the world on this. And I still have to wait hours, days, weeks sometimes to get the information I need. That just doesn't work. And that was the caiman of this company. And so we have created a platform where you now can access your corporate systems with 100% accuracy and just ask questions in plain language and get in answers. And the answers will be auto-visualized when necessary. You can monitor all your business processes and KPIs across your entire team, the entire globe if you want, and get alerts when something goes over or under a threshold that you have set. I'll get an immediate alert so I can do corrective management on a global basis, or just for my team, instantly. And when necessary.
Oh, really, really good. Talk about Quarrio. What problem are you solving for CEOs, and why is it that it hasn't been solved despite decades of data tools?
One of our team members, Jim Cates, who led global R&D for IBM for like 20 years or so, he led the teams that created standard query language or SQL, DB2. He built the underlying technologies for Watson. He has a philosophy which I agree with, which is that everything in an organization is guided by the cycle time to information.
That's good.
So cycle time to information shortens cycle time to decision, which shortens cycle time to action, which shortens cycle time to results. So if you can have that iterative process go through and watch that iterative process, today it takes about 2.7 weeks in the average American mid-sized or large organization to get an ad hoc report.
Wow.
With Quarrio, it takes 2 seconds. So imagine you're a company, let's say you're Goldman Sachs, and you're competing with another company that is very similar, let's say Morgan Stanley. And in one organization, you get the information that you request back in 2 seconds. In the other one, it takes days to weeks to get that information back. How will that affect your market position? How will that affect your execution? And how will that affect your results? That's really what we're addressing in Quarrio. And so we've built an AI platform on a deterministic base. And by building it on a deterministic base, we ensure three things. The first is accuracy, so that when I'm pulling data out of an enterprise system, one or multiple enterprise systems, I'm doing so with 100% accuracy. Secondly,
Wow.
it's consistent. Every time you ask the question, you get exactly the same answer. So try doing that in ChatGPT, for example. And then thirdly, it's all auditable, so that your compliance department, your risk management, your finance department are sure that whatever you are pulling and whatever you're doing is auditable. And that enables you not only to trust the decisions you're making, but also report to regulators and others. So that's what we've created. So we have created a platform, a deterministic AI platform called Codem. And that deterministic AI platform, we're now building agents on top of that deterministic AI platform. The first one, which is a question and answer agent. The second, which is enables you to monitor and track business processes across your organization, and determine thresholds that you may have. That if it crosses it in some way, then that means that I need to pay attention. And so I can now look at my KPIs and I know exactly red, yellow, green, where I need to focus at that given moment, or where I may direct my staff to focus. And then the third agent is called Workhorse. The first one is called Ask, the second Watchdog, the third is Workhorse. The Workhorse agent enables me to automate actions and workflows. So in the example I gave you earlier on with regards to the CFO, he could have said, if margins cross below this level, then the first thing I want to do is constrain the ability of sales reps to discount from 20% to 10%. So when it crosses that threshold, he will get an alert that says, margins have crossed this threshold. In that eventuality, you configured me to take these actions. Do you want to take it? Yes, no, or amend? Amend, I want to take it from 20% to 15% instead. Click, it informs SAP, it informs Salesforce, it informs the relevant people in the finance department, sales department, marketing department, and the relevant executives. All of that took 5 seconds.
Wow.
And then finally, the fourth product is an SDK that allows developers to build on top of the Codem engine and to generate accurately against their use cases. I mean, there are thousands upon thousands of use cases, and we cannot address them all. So we want to give developers the ability to address them and solve their problems in their own tools or develop new tools.
Like that. Well, let's explore something that probably is not as familiar to most of the listeners as with just even in the AI space, is deterministic AI versus probabilistic models. What is the difference between them, and why does it matter for trust, speed, and accuracy?
So first of all, both of them have existed in parallel for decades. So we who are out in the normal economy, we feel that AI is new. No, AI has been there for a long time. Every time you step on a flight, for example, there's something called an autopilot, which is AI, which was programmed by the same guy I mentioned to you and designed earlier on, Jim, who is on our team.
Okay.
So anytime you get on a flight, you're going to feel secure because you have that. And the pilots won't get overtired and so on and so forth. In order to do that, because it has to do with lives, it has to be deterministic. It cannot hallucinate, it cannot be biased, it cannot have errors. And as a consequence of that, we feel the same way about decision making. If you're going to make a decision, you want to know that you're making decisions on correct information based upon the data that you have in your systems. So the difference between probabilistic and deterministic systems is simply that you can have a black box versus white box approach, right? So with these probabilistic systems, actually both systems are extremely complex, but the probabilistic systems have you go through, let's say, 1 billion nodes of calculation. And you can afterwards try to understand how the system generated the result, but that also is a probability. So first you go against data, it generates a probabilistic result versus a precise or accurate result. Then you try to understand how that functioned using chain of thought, for example, and based upon that, that's also a probabilistic assumption of how the system actually generated the answer. For a lot of use cases, that just doesn't work. Military, healthcare, electricity grid, you name it, supply chain, we need accuracy. It matters if a container arrives 2 months later. It screws up a production process, for example.
Right.
If you automate a payment system and all of a sudden, oops, it was 100 million that was sent out and not $20,000. Oops, good luck on getting that back.
Right.
Etc., etc. So all of these different things, you need determinism to be able to trust that what is enacted within your system. Everyone talks about agentic AI, but agentic AI without context is useless for those kinds of use cases. And that's the challenge that we address, and we addressed from the ground up, rather than to take a technology approach and try to adjust that to the use cases. So we have developed our basis starting with what's called symbolic systems architectures and neurosymbolic architectures instead of probabilistic architectures like machine learning, neural networks, or transformers. So we had to build our technology stack very differently because we were very clear about the problem we wanted to solve from the beginning, which was accuracy. Did that answer your question, by the way?
It did. That makes so much sense. Because there are times where we need that same answer. Because you can ask ChatGPT the same question 5 times or 10 times. And 8 out of those 10 times, maybe 9, you'll get very similar answers, maybe a little bit different here and there. And one of them, it'll be like, where'd that come from? And
Exactly.
what we're looking for is that accuracy, so we get the same answer every time. That's the difference between the probability and a deterministic model.
Exactly. And also, I need to trust that the decisions I'm making are based on factual data versus a hallucination.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I make the wrong decisions, what is an organization? An organization is essentially a machine for making decisions and taking actions that have certain types of results. So everything in an organization is about decision making. And today, the major decisions are happening on the top level of an organization. And what we enable you to do is to take the decision processing all the way down to your receptionist, so that
That's good.
they have the ability to make the decisions in their work for their tasks on every level of the organization. So what all you have is an effective organization that can function in near real time. That's what you get with Quarrio.
That's amazing. And thinking about just the speed and accuracy, the data sources today there's so many of them, so many places we can get. Some are structured, some are unstructured. All sorts of different formats. I mean, just trying to think about putting all that together just is crazy. How do you deal with that and kind of just the explosion? I think that the data sources we have today have to be like 10 times more than what they were even, certainly 20 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago. What does that look like in companies, and what's changed in what control looks like for founders and execs, and dealing with all of these data sources and being able to make those fast, accurate decisions?
So you're absolutely correct. The amount of data in the world is increasing exponentially. We look at three different types of data. We look at structured data. That's the kind of data you would have in a database. We look at semi-structured data, such as from a log file, for example.
Okay.
And from a machine, an airplane engine. And we look at unstructured data, which you'd have in a PDF file or something like that, right? So across all of these different types of data, there are areas where people are putting a lot of effort and areas where people are putting relatively little effort. Most of the effort in the AI world up until now has focused on unstructured data, meaning PDF files, Word files, etc. We determined that we're going to start out looking at the data that is most valuable in an enterprise, which is the data they invest in, right? So they invest in structuring data, transforming data, putting data and storing it in these enterprise systems like Oracle or SAP. And based upon that, that's the data that they then make decisions on. When you do your strategic planning, what is the data you're looking for? Well, you're looking from your CRM system, your supply chain system, or your financial system. But that data has to be able to be retrieved by people, and you have to trust the retrieval process. Now, the data quality may be bad. You have two problems. One is data quality.
Sure.
The other problem is how do I access it at will to make decisions? And so we focus on how do I access the data to make decisions, and we let others work with the data quality issue. So we have partners that are dealing with that. And the consequence of that is that we can now go against the semi-structured and structured data sources and generate this for you at will. And that means that you or your organization or your team is going to be more effective.
Are you missing key relationships that could transform your leadership? Most leaders are. They just can't see it. And here's what shocked me: the most successful leaders aren't lone heroes. They're the center of four specific relationships that multiply their impact while preserving their sanity. You're probably like everybody else, drowning in connections, but starving for real support. And it's creating a silent epidemic of leadership burnout among executives just like you. So, take my free assessment at thecaptainskeys.com. Discover which critical relationships you're missing in under 5 minutes, and then grab my new book, The Captain's Keys, part Netflix drama, part game changing blueprint for leadership that actually sustains you. One CEO called it the owner's manual I never got. So stop flying blind and see what you're missing. I like that. That's a very, very elegant solution. for doing
Thank
that.
you.
And just think back to what you said earlier about taking, something that takes 2 quarters and now you've got the answer in 5 seconds. And that is mind boggling to think that is possible, especially with disparate data and coming from different sources and formats.
Yeah, so we have two big areas of IP that we're protecting and patenting. One is how do you create accuracy in natural language? And the other is what we call the data heterogeneity problem, meaning that the data is sitting in dozens, hundreds of data sources. So an average mid-sized enterprise in America has about 300 different structured data sources. That's mind-boggling. How do you
It
manage that?
is.
The life of a CIO or a VP of IT is like hell, right? And then you have all of the business people knocking on their door saying, I need this data, I need for this information. So you have the IT team and the analyst team, they're harried. No one is satisfied with their work. All they're doing, they're always behind schedule.
Yep.
People are miserable. We remove that problem and we enable those people to be more effective, go away from doing rote, boring reports to actually focusing on what they are supposed to focus on and what they've got educated to focus on, which is strategic questions. Which market should we go into and why? How can we improve the margin output of our manufacturing process? How do we make that cheaper? What's the inputs that we should look at in our manufacturing process or the sourcing? We can now think strategically and not be so reactive in everything we're doing and use these resources we already have for more strategic engagements. Again, back to what is an organization? It's a decisioning and action machine to create results.
That's a great way to look at it. Walk us through maybe a real world use case. Yeah, how does Quarrio help a leader spot what's leaking, what's working, and what's being missed?
So with Watchdog, which is on prototype stage right now, which is an agent on top of the Codem platform, that agent in the onboarding process, you basically configure the business processes in your team and organization that you care about, that you want to monitor, and you define the thresholds. I need to be alerted when X happens, right? And when X happens, then it is going into greater danger.
Okay.
Right? So I am now looking at it and I can say, okay, green, yellow, or red, what is the level of attention I need to do? And how serious is it in terms of attention? And then you can further subdivide it into tactical or strategic problems, that kind of stuff. But the bottom line is that I now have an opportunity to see across all of my business processes and understand which ones are going up and down and deal with that. And by doing that, I now am able to make decisions with it. So that's the Watchdog product. Once I get an alert, I need to ask questions. Well, who's responsible for that product in that manufacturing facility? And to give me, so I can say, okay, now I have that name and with contact information, and I can shoot him an email and ask further questions. Or I can ask further questions of the data that is in the manufacturing system and the financial system to get the information I need. So by doing this, I now have control. I can execute on any level I am in the organization based upon the data that I have access to, right? So I, of course, security, privacy, permissions is core
Sure.
to doing something like this. And And people can only see the data they're allowed to see, right? So for example, as a sales rep, I can see my CRM system. As a VP of sales, I may be able to see the CRM plus marketing systems plus portions of the financial system that are relevant to me. Because I need to know, as a VP of sales, deal with margin questions, for example, and sales mix and product mix in deals, that kind of stuff. So I need access to different types of information, and so each of these systems have a permission level, and then Quarrio also has an administration panel where you can do further work around that to determine who gets access to what in there. And remember, with Quarrio, we sit behind your security footprint framework so that you don't have to be worried about any kind of data leakage or having the questions my team asks train your system so that you can give this to other people who are my competitors. This is a major concern for a lot of organizations using probabilistic models today.
Got it. Thinking about go-to-market, you mentioned CRMs earlier, and you started with Salesforce, kind of as a wedge to break into that market. Why that entry point, and how does that accelerate into broader, markets, broader adoption?
So partially that was strategic, partially it was serendipitous.
Love that answer, because a lot of decisions like that are.
Yeah. We actually started out, when I first thought about the idea of Quarrio, I said I come from a medical family where everyone is in the medical field in some way other than I am. And I said, people in hospital need to make decisions. It's life and death.
Right.
We need to save lives, be able to determine where a MRSA infection came from, or why someone got readmitted, or which surgeon fits best for what kind of case, etc., etc. There are lots and lots of decisions you have to make in healthcare, but in healthcare, there are life-changing decisions. So that's where I thought we were going to start. And then I realized that healthcare, the purchasing process within healthcare is extremely complex. The incentive structures are complex and not easily understood. And therefore, their valuation, or how they value these systems that to help make decision making, is actually not as high as it should be. Who has urgency and budget? Salespeople. And
That is true.
we are in Berkeley, and I look out from my house and I see the Salesforce tower.
Yeah.
And that was it. So Salesforce ended up incubating us. The woman who built their AI groups, and before that the AI groups at eBay and PayPal, as soon as she saw a prototype of Quarry, she wrote a check and invested immediately. One of their former CTOs invested in us, and they gave us free office space for 3 years. So they were very, very nice to us. So that
Awesome.
was one of the reasons why we are going with Salesforce originally. At this point now, that was when we're just starting out. Now it's a platform that goes against multiple systems. So we can deal with Salesforce, SAP, Workday, ServiceNow. It doesn't really, Oracle, it doesn't really matter who we go against. And but we're grateful to Salesforce for getting us off the ground.
That's great. I love that. Well, your experience spans, companies pretty much across the board, massive multinationals, lean startups. How has your view of team building evolved over time?
It's a very different answer depending on what kind of team you're trying to build. I have a friend who is the head of sewage district, and she, of course, is dealing with decision making, but she's dealing with decision making with a large amount of blue collar workers, a large which is who do things practically. I mean, cleaning out stuff and ensuring that when I flush my toilet, that it actually works. Essential work, right?
Yes, that is essential work for sure.
Exactly. So when I look at her decision process versus, for example, my decision process in an AI startup, it is strange how similar it is, regardless of the field you're in. Because you still have to get the data out of your systems, you have to interpret that data, and then you have to make decisions on that data and look at the results. And that's the same, regardless of organization. And so as we're looking at it, the most important thing for us is to ensure that you actually can get access, that people actually see what is necessary, and that you as a leader know that your team can do what they need to do. So the difference in building teams versus executing on teams using data is minimal. But how you build that team and how you interact with people will differ based upon cultural norms and expectations and the kinds of tasks you need to execute. I don't know if that answered your question about team building.
Yes.
And also teams, it depends on, are we doing a kind of a special forces turnaround of an organization that is failing? Or are we trying to enter a new market?
Right.
It's a broad range of teams and decisions that have to be made, but it all should be made based upon actual data and information that I can trust.
Yeah. What's a mistake that you see other AI founders making right now, especially when selling to mid-market or enterprise, or just within their own organizations and how they're deploying AI or leaning on that in their products?
I think one of the mistakes is buying the hype.
Yeah.
There is so much hype around AI. We have to think about, okay, how do I actually distinguish between hype and reality? This is hard,
It is.
right? And billions of dollars are being spent to confuse us about reality so that people will spend money that they don't actually have to buy our products. How can a customer understand the difference? So you talk about AI founders. Those people actually know stuff about it, and so it should be easier for them. But many of them are jumping on the same hype bandwagon and cannot tell the difference. How about if you're a VP of IT or CIO? That is prohibitively difficult. So the hype machine is so strong. So I would say that is the number one challenge, both for founders and for customers, is to understand what kind of AI fits with what kind of use case to solve what kind of problem. Because that's really what we want to do, is to solve problems.
Right.
We want more effective enterprises. And
Goal.
notice I use the word effective versus efficient. They're
Yes.
different, right?
How do you see the difference? Yeah, effective versus efficient, and then how does that fit into the market today, specifically in SaaS, as we continue to grow and regardless of size, small, large, efficiency versus effective.
To put it simply, I view efficient from the perspective of solving a min-max mathematics problem, right? How do I optimize and how do I predict? And I need to do that to ensure that my supply chain functions in real time, for example. So if we look at effectiveness, effectiveness requires redundancy. Effectiveness is being able to accomplish your goal in the best possible manner. Not in the shortest time or the best expense, but goal accomplishment. And that goal is a strategic goal. We enter and dominate a market. If you want to enter and dominate a market and you have a meta goal like that, then you can talk to the finance team or the sales team. If you focus primarily on efficiency, you put that goal in danger because there's no redundancy. But if you say, this is the goal and I want to reach it in the most effective manner to accomplish those criteria of dominating the market, then I may have to spend extra money or take extra time or use extra people, but I will accomplish my goal. That's the difference.
I like that. What advice would you give to a first-time founder about navigating the phase between product build and market traction?
That's a difficult one because I make the same mistake many times.
You and me both. One day I'll learn.
So I think the answer is people. You know, I'm not very smart. And because I realize that I'm not very smart, I ensure that I work with people who are very smart. And then they make me look smart, and I can walk around, bang my chest, and hold my head up as if I'm smart. So I would say that the core thing is getting people of the requisite quality, of the requisite motivation, and of the requisite experience to be able to execute properly and to guide you as a founder. Because as a founder, you're encountering things that you've never encountered before. At least I do. And all of the time, I'm always behind where I thought I was going to be, and I understand less than I thought I was going to understand, and things come out of boom and hit me. That's the life of a founder.
Yes.
So I would say the only protection, insurance against that is good people. So that's another thing is, how do I identify good people? How do I attract them so that they're willing to work with me when I don't have the kind of money that they could get elsewhere?
Right.
How do I do all of that? That's a second level discussion. The first one is I need to understand that the quality of my people matters and how they work with me matters, how honest they are, how dedicated they are. Will they have my back? Will I have their back? Do they think I will have their back? Because it's a relationship. With everyone you're working with, it's a relationship. And if I don't have their back, I cannot expect them to have mine.
Really, really good. Yeah, people make all the difference in the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, everything we do is about people, Jeff.
Yeah.
And that's why we have, our core ethos in the company is can be centralized in the word stewardship. And why stewardship? Well, stewardship is why many of us do what we do. I'm a steward to my family. That's why I go to work. And I do this boring stuff to get money so that my kids can live in a house and go to a decent school. That's stewardship.
Yeah.
I'm doing what's necessary for others. I'm taking care of something for others. And that's what we're doing within the company. We care for each other. We care for our customers, our partners, and we realize that while we're dealing with an organization, the individual matters.
So good. Well, final question. Across all your startups, what's one principle that has never failed you in building something that lasts?
If you're onto something good, even though it drives you mad, believe in yourself. Resilience and tenacity, I think, is a core thing. most of us give up before we should have. The break would have come had we stuck it out one more month. But then the question is, am I being delusional as a founder in believing in this? Well, that's what drives you mad. Not knowing the difference between, am I delusional, or does the market not really understand me? And when I say the market, I'm talking about the entire market, from people I want to hire, to investors I want to deal with, to customers I want to sell to. Am I delusional? Or is this truly a groundbreaking idea that will make a difference? That's when you're dealing with groundbreaking ideas. Most of us can be a little bit less maddening or maddened by focusing on an industry problem that we identify, or a process problem we identify, and building something to solve that.
Yeah.
But again, even if I'm just doing that, it's tenacity. If I'm an engineer, for example, and I'm building a product, I have no idea of how to sell it. I built a product, it solves the problem, but how now do I get a customer? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, where can people learn more about you and about Quarrio online?
So I'm on LinkedIn. My name is KG Charles Harris.
Outstanding. We'll make sure and link that in the show notes. And KG, it's been such a great conversation, so much value, and a very rich conversation. And I think I learned in both of our conversations, and I'm sure the audience did as well. So thank you for being on SaaS Fuel.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. And
thank you. Thanks again, KG, for coming on the show and sharing your journey and insights. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. And be sure to check us out on YouTube as well. It's at Champion Leadership. We have full video episodes over there for you, training, outtakes, shorts, lots of resources over there for you. It's at Champion Leadership on YouTube. And you know, thought leaders share. I bet you're one of those because you're here. Share this episode with someone who says, this will only take 5 minutes. Like, that hasn't ruined lives before. Everyone who shares this week gets a time-bending calendar that translates quick sync into its true duration, 47 minutes and mild regret. And coming up on Thursday, how do early-stage startups in complex industries turn forgettable products into brands the market actually remembers? Next up, we have Marlena Sarnak, co-founder of The Company Advice. She joins us to break down positioning, storytelling, and go-to-market strategy specific to health tech, fintech, and insurtech founders navigating critical inflection points. Yeah, those might seem like kind of boring industries. How do we make those exciting? Marlena is going to tell us. And coming up 1 week from today, what does it take to build an awesome SaaS that includes design, machine learning, and audio AI? Well, Alex Berkovic will be with us to talk about that. He is co-founder and CEO of Sphinx. He's going to join us to share lessons from not only Sphinx, but also from founding Adorno AI and building next-generation audio generation models for video. I'll see you next time, and as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/saasfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.